Well, thank you all for coming to this forum. It has become somewhat of a tradition over the last 3 or 4 years to tell some stories on Stewardship Sunday, which we're also calling Generosity Sunday, about the ways that we practice generosity in our lives. Especially today, we're focusing on practicing generosity, which is our stewardship theme for this year. We have some people that will be telling some stories about ways that they have had generosity modeled to them. So we look forward to those stories. We also have some people that are going to be talking a little bit about the great giveaway of the $20, that awesome amount that was found and surprised people in their bulletins, and the opportunities to give some of those away, and the stories related to them. There are some things on the wall you might notice that are some of the actual words of people in print, not necessarily everybody that will be here. We'll also have those eventually online, and we look forward to being able to share those stories in a variety of contexts. Thank you again for coming and for your presence here and for celebrating together generosity. Let's begin with a word of prayer. Good and gracious God, we are so grateful this Sunday for this congregation, for the ministry that you've given us, for hearts that are filled to overflowing with your love, for a chance to respond and say thank you in a variety of ways. We ask you to be with each person here, not necessarily regular speakers, but we're so glad that they're standing up and sharing some of their own stories. We thank you for all the ways that you challenge us and stretch us and allow us to be your people both here and in the world. Bless our time. In Jesus' name, amen. Our first speaker is Byron Clark. Byron is on the stewardship team, and he's going to get us going. Isn't it great to be first, Byron? Come on up.
Well, I was really hoping somebody else would go first so I could follow their example, but I guess I'll wing it here. So Pastor Vern had just asked me to talk about generosity in ways that I've received generosity or seen generosity or been involved with it. And so I had to think way back, because I have a lot of stories, but they're not very exciting. So, but, just a couple things that probably really stand out in my mind. There's many different ways that people can be generous, and one of those stories goes back to when I was in college, and most of the time, I was a very poor college student. If I had $5 in the checking account, I felt pretty good. A lot of ramen noodles and Kraft mac and cheese because it was cheap. And anyways, I had a very expensive one quarter, and I was very short financially. I was working part-time to try to pay the bills, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay for my textbooks and tuition. And I had a friend of mine that was on the GI Bill, and so a lot of his stuff was taken care of for the most part. He actually had a little bit of extra money after he got his GI funds, and I never told him how short I was, but I guess he could tell that I was hurting and that I didn't know how I was going to pay the bills. I was, staying awake at night and trying to figure out how I was going to pay what I needed to pay, and I found out later, as I was going down to the business office to make my payments, that my bill had been paid. And I was stunned. I'm like, who paid my bill? And so I went down there, or I found out later that he actually had found out that I was needing some cash, and he went down there and covered it. And he said, well, I knew you'd be good for it, he said, so just pay me back whenever you could. It took me about, probably 7 or 8 months, to come up with the cash to pay him back, working for minimum wage, waiting on tables. But I did, and I was very grateful, and I was very surprised, because I knew this guy, but I wouldn't say that we were best friends. I knew him, we were in some, student clubs together, but it wasn't somebody that I would have suspected would have done something like that for me. So that was probably a very powerful thing. And to this day, I still think about that guy in a different light, and we're friends, and we call each other every once in a while. We're a lot closer than we were because of it, but I was really impressed by that generosity. It wasn't something I'd looked for, and frankly, when we think about generosity, it's one of those things that kind of makes us a little bit uncomfortable sometimes too, especially when you're on the receiving end of it. just one other example that I might provide. A few years ago, my grandfather was very ill and he was dying, and it was a very hard time for me and my family. And I had a friend that called me every day just to see how I was doing. That was generous. That meant so much. And so when you think about things that you can do to be generous, it doesn't always have to be things that you do monetarily, but it can be things that you do with your time. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Byron. The next person is Alicia Volkers, and Alicia's on the church council, and she's going to share some stories with us.
I'm a little bit shorter than Byron. Hi. Like Pastor Word said, thank you. I think that's good. Thanks. My name's Alicia. For those of you that don't know me, I am a proud mother of two. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. I am 30 years old, and I recently went back to school about 3 years ago. I was aiming for the dental hygiene program, not quite realizing how stressful aiming for that would be, especially with two kids. My husband, bless his heart, he's a police officer here in Rochester. He works, you could say, a crazy schedule. 3 weeks out of the month he works from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then another 3 weeks out of the month it is 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And every week it's different days. So Monday through Thursday, the next week's Tuesday through Friday, and so on and so forth. So not much consistency. So going to school, I thought, well, I like a challenge. We'll see how this goes. So I did, thank God, get into the program, and I'm in my second year, and I have one more semester left. When I started in the program, it's a close-knit group of girls. It's 15 of us total. I'm the oldest out of all of them, so I will make references that nobody understands. I will call out Bueller when nobody responds to me, and they still don't get it. So, yeah, it's definitely, I realize my age in this group, but we're all so close. And part of that is we really help each other out with studying, with preparing for tests, with just encouragement. I mean, it is a very intense program, and the requirements we have to meet, I mean, there has been a lot of tears shed in my class, and we are all very supportive of each other. So just that everyday generosity of their time, their words, and being able to give it back to them and being able to receive it from them, it's very encouraging. But the main thing that I think of with generosity is my in-laws. They live about 10 minutes from us, and they are very hard workers. They pull overtime, they don't complain, they just, work ethic is a huge thing for them. But so is family. And when I started the program, we have clinic hours from noon to 9:30 at night, 2 days a week. And with my husband's schedule, young kids, who's going to watch them? How am I going to find a sitter and find the money to pay for a sitter? It was actually really scary. I thought I might have to drop out of the program because of it. No questions asked. They said they will watch the kids. They didn't want to hear another word about it. They'd be there for us anytime we needed them. And so not only do they wake up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning to go to their job and work extremely hard, they come to our house to watch my kids until 9:30, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. And if it was not for them, I would not be in the program at all. I don't know what I would have done. And they pick up my kids on the weekends sometimes just to take them for a day, to go hunting, to go to a movie, to go for walks, to make cookies, to decorate the house, anything, just so I can have time to study. I also work 2 jobs. I am a server and I am a receptionist at a dental clinic. And my serving job, it's nights and weekends. And my reception job is also nights. So kind of a night owl and a morning person. Not much sleep. You see me drink a lot of coffee here, so that's my oxygen. And I just think, my in-laws, they don't have to watch my kids. They don't have to take that time. They could say, well, this day might not work. I'm pretty exhausted, but not once do they complain. They always tell me my kids were great that night, and I know they are not always good. So, I know there's some fibbing or some rose-colored glasses in that, but they're so supportive, and they really make sure that we know no matter what we're going through, they're there for us. My parents live an hour and a half away. They live in Burnsville. And they've offered to come down, to watch the kids, but it's harder for them with the drive. But they will also offer to take the kids for the weekend or ask if there's anything we need help with in any way. It's just nice to have a family that truly cares and doesn't feel the obligation. They just automatically come up and ask and offer and don't take no for an answer. So that's what I have to offer today.
Person I believe on my list is Ann Holmes. Ann, are you a junior? Are you go to Mayo? All right. We look forward to hearing Ann. She's around here quite a bit and regularly involved in things, and we look forward to your participation and generosity. Did not light this up well.
All right, generosity. Generosity is not always easy, but we're called to practice it. Ever since I was in second grade, I've been going with my dad to volunteer at Community Food Response. Community Food Response, or CFR as we call it, collects surplus food from area restaurants and businesses, such as the Canadian Honker, Mayo Clinic, and the Rochester Public School District, and gives it to those in need in our community. CFR has been providing food to hungry families in the Rochester area since 1993. Last year, they collected 219,000 pounds of food that would have been thrown away. This provided nearly 87,000 meals. The first Friday of every month, a crew from Zumbro works the distribution shift. These are wonderful acts of generosity. You might think my story is about the Zumbro group serving or the rescue of an incredible amount of food, but it's not. My story is simpler. Through my serving with CFR, I have come across a gentleman who let's just call Joe. Joe has some sort of need, because if not, he wouldn't be coming to CFR. Despite this, he finds a way to practice generosity using what he has. This is how Joe's visit to CFR typically goes. He walks up to the counter towards the end of the night. Before he even begins to bring out his membership cards, he presents the volunteers with a bag of chocolate, a pan of brownies, or some kind of tasty dessert. I think to myself, wow, this guy knows how to be generous, this guy is really appreciative, and this guy has a caring heart. Joe will chat with us volunteers and always finds a way to make us chuckle. I love Joe's positive spirit. Some nights we're low on food, but Joe seems to be grateful for whatever we can offer. He does prefer sweets, though. Joe demonstrates that even though an act that may be simple, like bringing brownies, it can make a big difference in the life of someone else. It has made a difference in mine. His actions have helped me to be thankful for my blessings and to be open to sharing what I have. Generosity doesn't need to always involve stuff, but as Joe shows, being generous in spirit is just as important. Joe probably didn't have loads of extra cash sitting around, but he has found a way to show generosity, and we can too. Joe reminds me to never underestimate what I have. A small action can go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the ones so far. We're going to take a little break and these longer talks now, and we're going to tell some stories about the $20 surprises and how they were given away. And I've got a list, but I don't necessarily have the complete list. Anybody that happened to have a $20 bill that wants to talk a little bit about that or what you might have done with it is certainly welcome to do this. But I'll go down my list, and if you want to just make your own presence felt, raise your hand along the way, and we'll share some stories. We're going to start with Karen Campbell. You can just stand up right where you are. What's your name? Karen Campbell?
That's right, Karen Campbell. I received the $20, and I ended up walking around with it for a whole week because I would be looking around downtown everywhere thinking, should I give it to this person, that person? Well, then after the first week, the catalog came from Heifer International, which is one of my favorite charities. So I kind of decided I'm going to look in this and see what will $20 buy. So as I paged through it, I came across something that I thought was perfect. I could buy a flock of chickens for $20. And maybe it's the farm girl in me, but I just really thought, this is perfect. This was meant to be. But this flock of chicks really represented many things. One being nutritious food for the family. The flock would grow and multiply. It would provide income, and if there's enough income, maybe even help their children go to school. So I thought this is a perfect fit. But what really got me excited with this whole thing was this flock of chicks really could represent hope for a family in another part of the world. So I didn't have the benefit of seeing the gratitude on someone's face, but as I put it in the mailbox, I just said a little prayer. I said, please bless this family with hope.
Thank you, Karen. And now Marla Fremsted. She has been commissioned by her husband Chuck, who said, Marlis will speak today.
Chuck and I have been a part of a small study group about 2 years ago that was led by Ann and Noel Peterson. And we were encouraged, our group was encouraged to take on a community project. We decided to do the Francis House, the exterior part of it with the planters they have, and do seasonal plantings there. So each season we take on that project. I am going to use the $20, which I still have. I was hoping to do winter planting, but the snow moved in. So we'll have to see. If not this winter, this spring will be where we'll take that on.
And the Francis House is just up the way, just one block. I don't know if everybody knows where it is, but
It's a homeless shelter on 4th Street. So
thank you very much. We have a confirmation class here, and a small group, and we have their mentors here, Angela Kramer and Jody Moyer, and 4 of them, I don't think they're all speaking, but they're all brave. So come on, stand up. We'll let you stand over by the wall, and you just pass the mic to who you think should be the spokesperson.
Well, it seems like our story isn't as glamorous as some of these other ones, but it's still important. So we got our $20 and we donated it to Operation Uplink, and that's an operation where you send money away to like soldiers who want to call home but can't because it costs money for the long distance call. So we made it free to them so that they can call their families, and we just found this important because they are serving our country and they should be able to call their family when they're away overseas.
We chose to give our money to this organization because it was Veterans Day on, what was that, Tuesday? Tuesday? And so that's why we chose to give it to some veterans and thought it'd be a good idea.
There were some other confirmands. I'm going to read just a couple. By the way, all the 8th and 9th graders, or 7 of their the groups in 8th and 9th grade were given the $20, so they got to wrestle together with what to do with it. I'm going to read a couple of them. Now, there was one 8th grade boys confirmation small group, and they wrote this. Our confirmation small group had a Wednesday night off from class, so we went to BB's for supper. What's BB's?
Pizza.
It's a pizza place. I guess I knew that. Sure, I knew that. But Campbell, maybe, BB's not. Okay, so we could spend some time together. While there, we treated 2 individuals to supper with our group's $20. It was awesome to give to others when they did not expect it. They really appreciated it, and it made our pizza extra yummy. And then there was another group, and they were even more ambitious. And this group will remain anonymous, but they were given the $20, and they ended up each getting $20 from an anonymous donor. And this is where they gave it. A boy named Evan gave his $20 to a school counselor to give to a student in need. Jacob gave $20 to a fundraiser at school that would benefit Channel 1. Spencer gave it to $20 to Paws and Claws, and Zach gave $20 to Channel 1. So lots of good stories. You'll be able to read many of them up on the wall and on the website, and we look forward to hearing more of them. And now, Julie Lingen is going to share a story about school.
I came to Wednesday night service about 2 weeks ago and was handed the $20 from Vern, and I said I definitely can find a place for this. A lot of the students that I teach don't have a lot. Sorry, I did not think I was being emotional, but a lot of the students that I teach don't have a lot. They don't have food or clothes or all the general necessities of life. So it was very hard to decide who to give it to. And I just thought for a while, and I'm like, a lot of these kids do have access to Channel 1. We're so lucky we have the backpack program at our school and so many generous people. And so I just started thinking more about some of the people that I work with and how much they give. And as most of you know, teaching is not a profession that you go into to make a lot of money. I did not think I was going to start crying. So I thought about some of my colleagues, and one of my colleagues had lost her husband last year in a workplace shooting, and I thought about her. I know that she's getting a lot of support from her family, and I thought about one of my other colleagues who works in the office every day for very minimal money. Her husband was just diagnosed with a terrible life-threatening disease. He was not able to work, and so I chose to give it to her. And like I said, it's so hard because $20, although we're very, very grateful for anything to be able to give to people, it's not life-changing necessarily. But I asked my colleague to come down to my office. I said, "Can you come down when you have a minute?" She walked down to my office and came in, and I shared with her that I had this money that was given to me from my church to share with someone that I would like, and she was very, very grateful. She just started crying, and she's like, "Julie, you have no idea." She said, "We were not able to make our last farm payment, and yada, yada, yada." She shared a whole bunch of stuff with me, and she was just ever so grateful, and she said she feels like she was blessed with an angel, so it felt so good. So thank you, Zumbro.
Thank you, Julie. It's a reminder that, yes, $20 only goes so far, but for a lot of people, I think it's the thought that counts and that effort to reach out. And plus, for the Lutherans who sometimes struggle with putting ourselves forward, this is an excuse to just do it, right? You could just make that up anytime. Take $20 and $50 and say, "My church told me to do this, and I'm going to share it with you." Or you could, if you need further instructions, you can. Lester Hornfett told me to do this, and you can just pass it out and make a difference. And isn't that a great thing to be able to do in our community anytime? I know a lot of you did that because I've heard some of those stories, and they tend to be a little bit more anonymous. And many people just said, "I'm going to do this. This sounds like a lot of fun." Well, it is fun, and it's meaningful, deeply meaningful. So thank you for doing it. Anybody else here today that maybe isn't on the program in this $20 thing but would like to share a quick story? We got one. Okay, Pat.